Hello, welcome to another video, and today I wanted to discuss the importance of getting the right amount of load right for your training, especially when you're dealing with a back injury and you're in the process of trying to strengthen it. And sometimes people can get caught up in chasing a load or really trying to get a maximum strength out of it, when really for the stronger back, it's more comes down to endurance. So here's an example of Nathan doing really good technique with the Romanian deadlift. This isn't extremely heavy, but for someone with back pain, this could be extremely risky. All right, if they get it wrong, could cause a ton of trouble. And if say this is someone who isn't as strong as Nathan, then that might be close to their maximum doing that many reps, like 6 reps. Now, normally that would sound really good, and to some extent it is, but the risk is, again, very high. But also, more importantly, the problems associated with back pain are more related to endurance than maximal strength. And that's where someone like McGill, Dr Stuart McGill's done lots of research on this, and they've tested it many, many times and in their lab and doing tons of things with EMGs and all that sort of stuff, and they've always found that the person who has low endurance is most vulnerable to injury. So they maybe could do a 150 kilo deadlift, but they struggle to complete things that last long. And this is consistent with, say, gardening and things like that, where people, they actually do know how to lift things well, so like they can actually do this quite good, and they can do reps of 6 to 8, maybe even 10, and quite a heavy load, but they can't actually execute things over a longer period, so they're more vulnerable to injury and pain because they don't have that endurance to sustain the movement. So I would prefer using like a kettlebell, which I'll show you in a second. So this would be an example of I'd prefer maybe them learning to just use a simple kettlebell and execute reps of 20 to 30 reps, and often actually using a lot of single leg stuff, especially for hip pain. And that's another area where, again, you could be really straining the glute with, the glute's often the weakest part in that, with heavy loads, but its endurance is the limiting factor. So once they've sort of exceeded their endurance threshold, they're extremely vulnerable to re-injury and more pain. So learning how to execute really good form with a lighter load, obviously you need some load to have the challenge, but not really trying to overly complicate it. So here's an example of me doing the single leg, where I'm not even really picking it up. I'm just actually trying to execute it really slowly, also using eccentric methods, and isometric training at times can be really useful. All these things are going to be more beneficial than maximal load. So you have to really get that around that in your head. It's different to other areas in where you say the muscles in the upper body might respond better to some heavier load dumbbells and whatnot, but they're going to respond better. The back's going to respond better to these beautiful techniques and executed over a long period, so it doesn't fail on you when you're in that position of kneeling over to pull out a weed after several hours of gardening. All right, so it's one thing that's probably I haven't really discussed all that much. I'm showing lots of exercises all the time and techniques and mistakes to be aware of, but one of the little things that can make or break the program is how you're designing the sets and the reps, and more importantly the time. So deliberately using slow tempos. So for example, in this one I might be using a 5 seconds down and maybe even a 3-second hold. I'm not even lifting anything, but the tension building is quite significant, and I might be trying to get 12 to 15 reps, which is exhausting. I'm not going to be able to do that straight away. You're going to have to build up to it. But same thing with the kettlebell row. I could even do bent over rows. That can be even a useful thing at times. But again, you just have to be certain of the technique and build up to it. You can't just rush into these sort of things. So, but yeah, I thought it was a good video to share, because I had come across a few people who'd hurt themselves gardening in recent times, and when you speak to them about what they were doing, it didn't happen in the first 10 minutes. It happened after about the 2-hour mark. So always a sign, and their technique, that's the other thing, their technique is actually fairly good. So it tells me their strength is good, but not for long enough. It doesn't actually sustain the time that it needed to, and it fatigued, and then everything goes into an area where it shouldn't go, and that's when you're in pain. All right, so I hope that this video wasn't too confusing. It was a bit of a quick one, but yeah, I hope it gives you some different things to think about. Yeah, and it helps you in your training. If you've got a sore back, hopefully it helps you overcome it. All right, thanks again, and I'll see you next time.